Pikachu and Eevee are not starters. This is a bit of a controversial topic. So many people say that they are and so many people say that they are not. We will only be going over mainline games and the anime and not include any of the side games. Because there are side games with other Pokemons that you start with, but I know that so many people don't like to count those. But yeah, so many people have said that Pikachu and Eevee are starters, and simply just because we can start with them in some games. But I'm here to say that I disagree, and I disagree quite a lot with this. And you can of course think whatever you want, but for me, they will never be starters. And the first thing is that other people, both in the anime and the games, have had other starters. For example, Wally had a Ralts as his first Pokemon, as his starter Pokemon. Starter Pokemon are known as first partner Pokemon, or at least according to Pokemon. It is a phantom that has been official sometimes, but now it's just first partner Pokemon. And most of the time when we see them talk about first partner Pokemon, they only show the starters, the ones that I mean, not Pikachu and Eevee. But when people talk about the starters, why do we only count the main character starters and not other character starters as well? Because I feel like we should. I feel like that is a very important part of the whole conversation. Didn't people call Eevee a starter before Let's Go? Because Blue got Eevee in Pokemon Yellow. In the Pokemon Starter Wiki, they include some of these trainers. They do also include Pikachu and Eevee. But what they include is that Ethan or Lyra gets Meryl as a starter, and as well as Wally's Ralts. And I think it's interesting that they count them, because like I said, a lot of people don't count them and only count Pikachu and Eevee. And like I said, they count both Pikachu and Eevee from Pokemon Yellow and from Pokemon Let's Go. In the Nintendo Wiki, they include Pikachu and Eevee as well, but I don't think we really need to talk about the Nintendo fandom wiki. Like, even if they included the others, I think it would have just been dumb. Then we come to Bulbapedia, where they actually don't talk about the Meryl and the Ralts. But we have our regular starters. And then we have a section for other first partner Pokemons. And then we have as one part of it is Pikachu and Eevee, because of Let's Go. But we also have other references, which are Alolan Meowth and Poipo. And I think this was very interesting seeing this. That is because Alolan Meowth is given out by a Kahuna, and the Kahunas are known to give out starter Pokemons to trainers. And Poipo's Pokédex entry mentioned how it's a popular first partner in its home world, which is very interesting. But I wouldn't say that makes them starters. We also have a Cafe Remix video where Pikachu is seen like a few times, but only at times where it's there to fill a spot. When they show all of the starters, they actually focus on all of the starters, because this is some sort of starter update to Pokemon Cafe Remix, and these are the ones that are mentioned as the starter Pokemons. And sure, Pikachu is there, but Pikachu is also the mascot and fills the role of just being there if it needs to be. And in this picture, they clearly needed one more space. But Pikachu and Eevee was already in the game. But I still feel like they could have been a part of the promotion, but they did not promote it. Then we have the Pokemon cards. There has recently been a Pokemon card set that is coming out for the 30th anniversary, where we can see all of the promo cards of every single starter. And guess what two Pokemons are not being promoted with this set? Yes, you're correct, it is Pikachu and Eevee. They are not promoted with this starter focused set. Oh yeah, first partner Pokemon. And they clearly want to highlight the starters here. Pikachu is usually in a lot of merch and a lot of different stuff like this, but Pikachu is not here. And Eevee is of course not here either. And we have seen a ton of cards like this before, where starter has been there and Pikachu and Eevee has not been there. And this has happened with many different things, including starters, and Pikachu has still been there sometimes. Because Pikachu is the mascot, and is everywhere, or not there when it's supposed to be focused on a specific group of Pokemons. In this case, the starters. And then we have the Pokemon Scarlet and Violet DLC, when they promoted all of the starters being in the wild. Obviously the Paldea starters aren't here, and Pikachu and Eevee are not. But I still think if they wanted to have the starters, they would have added Pikachu and Eevee here as well as Pokemon you could catch. At least that's what I think. And then we have Pokemon raid events, where Pikachu and Eevee did have 7-star raids, but they only had them sometimes, and they were clearly not a part of the whole promotion of starter evolutions. And a couple of months ago we had an announcement of them coming back, the starters. introduce the fully evolved starter Pokemons for 7-star raid battles in Scarlet and Violet as the final time. Probably the final time at least. And Pikachu and Eevee are not a part of this. It also says the fully evolved ones, which means that it wouldn't make sense for Pikachu and Eevee to be there because they have evolutions. But at any time when Pikachu and Eevee are known as the Pokemon you start with or promoted as the Pokemon you start with, they are there without the evolutions. And in my opinion, a starter Pokemon needs to have evolutions and needs that as a focus. And again, Raichu and the Eevee evolutions did not have any form of raids like this. Sure, like I said, Pikachu and Eevee has had their raids, but they were not a part of the whole starter focus thing. They were just there, like Mewtwo and other 7-star raids. We had Iron Bundle in the middle of it. These guys were not a part of the 7-star starter raids. And in the beginning it was only Charizard anyway, because of course they wanted to give out Charizard. But okay, let's talk about Let's Go and Pokemon Yellow. Like I've said, they do not evolve in these games, which I think is a big sign of these not being starters. And also you're forced to pick these Pokemons. Clearly, this is a way of giving you a Pokemon without picking it, and you're supposed to be able to pick between starters, but this is a way of giving you a Pokemon instantly to promote that Pokemon, to have it as this Pokemon, to promote it on the entire game. Pokemon Yellow was obviously made as a reference to the anime, and I think it's really interesting that Ash has his own starter, because a lot of main characters and a lot of series needs a mascot to represent the whole series. So Pikachu being that makes sense. That doesn't make Pikachu a starter. There's no theory around how Oak already thought of giving Ash a Pikachu. And I think it was a smart move in the beginning to not give any of the starters any sort of advantage. And they probably did want to give him all of the starters, which is why they did that. But that does not make Pikachu a starter Pokemon. And then again, the games, they do not evolve at all there. You have these Pikachu and Eevee in Let's Go and they just can't evolve. But a big part about starters is that they evolve. And specifically when Pikachu and Eevee are the first Pokemon, they cannot evolve. If you watched this far and you're enjoying the video, please feel free to like and subscribe. It helps a lot. Feel free to join my Discord server and follow me on Twitch as well. Link in bio. We also have pseudo legendaries. And obviously Pokemon pseudo legendaries are the Pokemon that have 600 base stat total. But we do have Archulodon, who's not seen as a pseudo-legendary. If we're gonna count Pikachu and Eevee as starter, we gotta count Archulodon as a pseudo-legendary as well. Obviously, pseudo-legendary Pokemons aren't really an official Pokemon term, but we did have raids with all of the pseudo-legendary Pokemons, but we did not have Archulodon. These 7-star raids included every single one of them, because then obviously the criteria isn't just having 600 base stat total. Archulodon is an evolution that comes on later. It's also only a 2-stage Pokemon. It's also an item evolution. And all of this is the same for Eevee, as well as Pikachu evolving into Raichu with the Thunderstone. And sure, there are probably people that count Archulodon, but I personally don't think we should, because I would love to have more Pokemons at 600 mark that aren't pseudo-legendary Pokemons. So I think pseudo-legendary Pokemons are Pokemon with a 3-stage line that you get pretty late, that evolves a little bit later as well, and has 600 base stat total. It's a Pokemon that you meet later that will be a beast in the end game. And it's still a Pokemon that you grow with, but you grow with it at the end, that evolves with you, with the levels that you gain. Pikachu and Eevee only has a lot of appearances because they are popular, and Pikachu is the mascot, and they are really pushing these two to be popular and to be mascots, specifically Pikachu. But to define what a starter Pokemon is, you can't just say these are the Pokemon you start with, because then it's weird not to count other Pokemon in the Pokemon universe. So either we count all of them, including Pikachu and Eevee, or we only count the actual starters. And I think we should only count the actual starters, because starters are the Pokemon that you grow with, the Pokemon that you pick. You have 3 options. When you start a game, when you start your journey, you have these 3 options of 3 Pokemons that one of them you are going to grow with, one of them you are going to take through this journey. It has to be that you pick between these 3, and that they are 3 stages that have specifically evolved with level up. Because then, like I said, you will grow with them. Maybe we should include that they are fire, water, and grass. But also, we don't need to completely count that. And there's something special about these starters, about these Pokemon. These are the perfect Pokemon. They're all on the first stage. They all have a 3-stage. And Pikachu has Pichu, which would be really weird for an actual starter. Sure, Pikachu and Eevee are Pokemon that you have started with and other people have started with, but that does not make it a starter, just like a lot of other Pokemons. So Pikachu and Eevee does not count for that, because Eevee and Pikachu does not have most of the things that I said. And for this, I hope we get another Let's Go game, but with other Pokemons, just so more people will call them starters, and for me to just say no, because not every single Pokemon can be a starter. They are a very special group of Pokemon. And that is my reasoning for saying that Pikachu and Eevee are not starters. I hope you agree with this video. If you don't, please feel free to comment and tell me what you feel about this. And tell me your thoughts on this. Maybe you see them as starters. Don't forget to join my Discord and follow me on Twitch. Link in bio. And also feel free to like this video and subscribe. You can also watch a video right here about what Pokemon teams the Straw Hats from One Piece would have. But other than that, I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a great rest of your night, day, morning, or whatever. Peace out and don't forget to follow.